Hello, professionals. My name is Rico Aladdin, and I am the founder of Professional Lounge. My guest today is William Grube, and he is the founder of Groovy Education. So we have him here to continue our AI podcast series. And today we're going to talk about AI and education. Such a pleasure to have you here, William. Thank you so much for being on Professional Lounge today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what inspired you to start Groovy Education?
It's a really good question. It kind of just almost fell in my lap in a way. I was a computer science student at North Dakota State University when ChatGPT came out back in November of 2022, and it really exploded every single industry. But one of the biggest industries that it affected was education. But simultaneously, actually, all my internship work was done at a service co-op that
Mhm.
serviced schools with cybersecurity. That's where so I first got hands-on, noticed how companies services schools. I've always been more entrepreneurial driven. And as I was kind of looking, almost looking to start a business, it's
Mhm.
like, here's this thing with education. I know we have a lot of work to do in bringing it up to the 21st century.
Mhm.
As a computer science student, I took to the AI tools really, really quickly. And I really learned how to utilize them well. And I was like, hey, let's help out education, show them how we can be preparing students for a world where these AI tools do exist, but also be helping them, making sure they know how to leverage the tools, making sure the teachers know how to leverage the tools to save their own time and all the content generation and the busy work tasks that they have to do.
Mhm.
How can the school leaders be utilizing AI for the same things, all those busy work tasks, but also to do things like make more data driven decisions? So it's almost like this perfect intersection. I wouldn't say there's one thing that inspired me, but it was somewhere where I had the opportunity to help in a big way. So I started Groovy Education.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. So,
Yes.
how did your background in computer science influence your approach into AI in education?
Yes. I mean, as a computer science student,
Mhm.
you learn so much about it's almost like a new way of thinking through software development, through coding.
Yeah.
It's really a new way of thinking is what it is.
Mhm.
And when AI came out, I was really fascinated with how it actually worked, and I realized that I even had a hard time really wrapping my head around it,
Mhm.
but it really allowed you to almost think in the computer science way, in the coding way,
Mhm.
but more in natural language, where instead of coding based off of your like line by line coding,
Mhm.
you'd be able to go to an AI tool and have it write code, but you got to understand how to explain how it to write the code, and you really got to speed up that process.
Mhm.
So that's how I really took to it. But then as I was doing that, I realized that the education system was extremely outdated because I was going to class and handwriting code on exams. But when I was going home and playing around with my own personal projects, I was getting code spit out and I was programming almost in a different language, the
Mhm.
natural language. So that's where I really got to see, hey, the education system is super outdated. What can we do to make sure students are still learning in the AI era
Mhm.
and preparing them for a world where these tools do exist and every single student will use AI in their career?
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful, man. I'm loving the conversation simply because of what you just said, and so I'm curious. So, what was the moment that you realized AI could transform education?
Yeah, I almost it was like I think like the first time you hop on to ChatGPT 2 years ago,
Yeah.
it was kind of this mind blowing experience. You're like, wait a second, what if I ask this thing? Wait a second, what if I ask this thing? And you quickly realize that hey, your biggest limitation is your ability to think of tasks to ask ChatGPT to do.
Wow.
So that's pretty much as unlimited use cases across every single profession because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has unlimited use cases to students because of that. So we have this massive, massive tool that uh, many people use
Mm-hmm.
every single day. It has just ChatGPT alone has 300 million weekly users,
Ooh.
and that doesn't take into account, Claude by Anthropic or Gemini by Google or Microsoft's Copilot. That's just taking into account ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So I just saw that it has use case across every single profession, which means it will be used as a tool across every single profession because it saves time. And it has use cases it has unlimited use cases for students as well. So of course there's the route that schools could take and trying to, shun it, like, hey, make sure students are not using AI. Or there's a different route to take is, okay, because these AI tools exist, what should we change about education to make sure students are still learning and to make sure we're preparing them for a world where these tools exist? And that's really the vision that I wanted to bring to these schools is, hey, we should not be demonizing this thing right now because every student will be using it as a tool. What can we do instead?
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. So, what challenges did you face while you were launching Groovy Education, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, if you remember back when it came out, kind of almost the biggest talking point across all of the news, and it was really just students are going to use AI to write their essays. So when you're going to these schools, that's pretty much the frame of mind that they're coming to this professional development or training with is, okay, how can we prevent students from using AI? So I think the biggest jump or biggest challenge was shifting the perspectives of everybody in the room around AI. And I think that's where we really caught spark and caught fire because we ended up doing that very, very well. And after about, 40 minutes into the day, every single teacher not only understood that they should be leveraging the tools, but also understood that they should be preparing students for a world where these tools exist instead of demonizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the biggest challenge right off the bat was making sure everybody had that mindset shift around it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, if you could sum up your vision for AI in education in one sentence, what would it
One sentence.
be?
I might need a couple.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I,
okay.
I would say, I mean, there's a lot of paths to take with this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest ones, and one of the things that I talk about a lot during the training is a child that goes to a school that does not account for the existence of AI tools
Mm-hmm.
will struggle compared to a student who goes to a school that did account for the existence of AI tools. And we talk about terminating this arms race that happens between education and anti-cheating technology and instead making it more impossible to cheat by the way we're giving out curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Because this develops human skills.
Mm-hmm.
And through this, students can learn how to use technology in a productive way. Because students can very easily fall in this never-ending loop of going to class, not listening very well because they have these instant gratifications on their phone. They have new videos every 10 seconds. What do we think that's doing to their attention span? Well, it's diminishing it. They're going to class. They're trying to sit down and listen for an hour. They're probably zoned out for a lot of it because they're thinking about their own personal interests and their attention span just is not there. So going to class, not listening very well, going home, using AI tools to do their homework for them because they just want to go do kid things or they want to go down and shoot hoops with their friends or they want to go play this video game. Maybe they just want to go watch Netflix. They want to get their homework done as fast as possible. There's a free AI tool online that will spit it out for them in a matter of seconds. If you put yourself in a 14-year-old's shoes, there's maybe a somewhat high likelihood that you would be very tempted to go and do that thing. They're going to class, not listening very well, going home, using AI tools to solve their homework, going back to class, not listening very well. Now there's this never-ending loop of not only not developing a mastery of a topic, but they're also not developing critical thinking skills. They're not developing problem-solving skills. They're looking at technology as a crutch and not a tool. Compared to a student who goes to a school that did account for the existence of AI tools, maybe they go to class and instead of sitting down and having to listen for an hour, maybe they were doing an in-class activity where they're actively engaged, doing the thing. Because if you think about a time when you, in your life when you learn the most, you're probably doing the thing. We all go to college for 2 to 4 years, but we probably learn the most in that first year or two on the job than we learned in all of college. So in class, maybe they go to class and they have an in-class activity, and they were just excited that they didn't have to sit down and blankly stare at the board for an hour and they're actively engaged. Maybe they go home and their assignment forces them to go further than what AI can offer. We actually show teachers how they can use artificial intelligence to craft things like local environment-based questions. When you give a student a local environment-based question that makes them interact with their physical surroundings, there's really no way for technology to be a crutch in that scenario, only a tool. So having questions on assignments like that push students to go further than what AI can offer. So it's not a crutch in that scenario, but it's instead a tool. So those are the two paths that a school could take. Demonize it, students fall in that never-ending loop, or do something about it and terminate that arms race and make sure students are still learning.
Wonderful. So, I will that falls right into my next part of the conversation is talking about the role of AI in modern education. Why is it so crucial for educators, to integrate AI into their teaching today?
Yes, there has never been a time where it's been so incredibly simple to meet every student where they are at and almost tailor their learning experience into something that they're interested in. Say we have a student with dyslexia, and
Mhm.
that student is in seventh grade, but they need their assignments at the fifth grade reading level. The teacher can now very easily go over to ChatGPT and say, hey, modify the following assignment for a student with dyslexia. I'm working with seventh grade students. This student needs it at the fifth grade reading level. You know, make the text simpler so that the student can read it, and actually change the assignment so it revolves around and the teacher could insert any topic that that student is interested in. Maybe it's basketball. Make the assignment revolve around basketball. Copy and paste the assignment in that's at the seventh grade reading level, and ChatGPT is just going to spit out an assignment at the fifth grade reading level, and it's going to be about something that that student is interested in. And therefore, they're going to gravitate to that more. It's at their reading level. So you just get this personalized instruction for students seamlessly with AI, and it's really going to transform education as a whole. Right now, it's super manual for a teacher. So it's very quick, but they have, if they wanted to, maybe change the assignment for every single student to be surrounding about something that that student is interested in, that would take, a long time to, give each student an assignment like that. But very quickly, AI tools are popping up that they in the software, the students just have their interests listed. And now when a teacher creates an assignment, it just automatically personalizes the assignment for each student. And the
Mhm.
teacher doesn't have to go back and forth to ChatGPT every single time. So over the next 5 years, we're going to see incredible, very important change in the education system. And I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm really hoping that schools take to it and actually understand the power behind it instead of
Mhm.
demonizing it.
Wonderful. And you said that this is the second time you mentioned that, uh, people demonize um, AI, right? Or this new technology. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you have encountered about AI in education?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about AI is because it has the unlimited use cases, there are negatives to AI
Hmm.
and there are positives to AI. So when it comes to like misconceptions, most of the quote unquote misconceptions that are brought up are almost very valid
Okay.
about, hey,
For
if
example.
for example, s- students are never going to think anymore when these AI tools exist. That's something that gets brought up a lot. And it's something like, yeah, that has potential to happen if we don't update the way we're giving out curriculum. If we give out the same way, students can very easily again fall in that never-ending loop and not develop critical thinking skills, not think for themselves. They won't
Hmm.
have the ability to have unique thoughts. They won't have the ability to have independent opinions. So lots of the, you know, negatives that people brought up are very valid. So it's more about at a school bringing up all of the negatives, bringing up all of the positives, and talking about capitalizing on the positives and mitigating the negatives.
Wonderful. So, um, as a student, I would assume that we all are looking to find the easy way to do an assignment, right? So, and the professors will have an uphill battle trying to fight that, right? You can understand that, that
Yeah.
I mean, not, I'm not going to say 100% of students are going to like that, but at least most of them might be looking for that. So, how can AI make learning a little more engaging and relevant to students while in how can AI also help the teachers in that sense protect the students, those who don't know that by misusing AI it's not a good thing for them.
Yeah. Over the past like decade, you've
Mhm.
probably seen this like huge push for more like project based learning,
Mhm.
like more hands on learning.
Yep, yep.
So when it comes to supporting the teachers through things like that, and that's one of the things that we teach schools is more project-based learning, because you can use AI to craft any project that you want,
Yeah.
and it very, very quickly.
Mhm.
So that's where AI can really support the teacher. And say they even have an idea for a project, but they know how much work would go into taking that idea to implementation,
Mm.
creating all of the resources, creating all of the directions. But now with AI, they can go to something like ChatGPT and say, hey, I have this idea for a project. What are the actionable steps I can take to make this idea, take this idea to implementation now? It'll list out, okay, here are the 5 steps. All right, let's double click into step one. The first step was drafting instructions for students.
Mhm.
Hey, ask me a list of questions that you would need to know that would allow you to craft these instructions for the students. ChatGPT will spit out this big list of questions. Maybe there's 10 questions there. Teacher can go and answer all the questions, make their idea come to life. They answer the questions. ChatGPT is going to return the instructions for students based off of the teacher's answers to that questions. Okay. Now
Mhm.
let's double click into step 2. We need to create this resource that the students will use in the project. Go through that same process. So they can just really, it's more, hey, I have this idea and I really love to teach this, but I don't want to do all the busy work that comes along with that idea. So it allows the teacher and really anybody in this world to go from idea to implementation very quickly.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. So is can AI truly personalize education?
Oh, 100%. I would just even, like, if you even have like an old college assignment on your computer,
Mhm.
I just to test it out, I would take that assignment and say, hey, I really like talking to people on podcasts.
Mhm.
Let's personalize the following assignment, revolving it around my love for talking to people on podcasts. Copy and paste that in. It's going to personalize it to what you love.
Mm.
So or hey, I need it. I'll give an example of how I use it as a learning tool to kind of personalize learning for myself. When I was preparing for exams, I would go back through my past assignments, take any questions that were a little bit fuzzy, throw it into ChatGPT, take the right answer, throw it into ChatGPT, say, hey, explain to me in detailed steps, like I've never taken this course before, how we got from problem to answer.
Mm. Wow.
And ChatGPT will break it down into super, super simple steps for me.
Mhm.
Again, if I still don't understand it, I would say, hey, put it in terms of basketball, put it in terms of golf, and I'd put it in these terms of things that I was interested in and knew a lot about.
Yeah.
And then I could kind of connect the dots and then go back to the more complicated explanation, but simple explanation, connect the dots. And then I could go and try that problem again. Or if there's a keyword that I didn't know. I still use it all the time when I'm listening to podcasts as a learning tool. I'll be listening to a podcast. Somebody will say some big word that I don't know, but
Yeah.
I like really want to understand the context of the conversation.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, in this type of conversation, what does this word mean? And it would just let me know, hey, this
Hmm.
is what it means.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the success stories that you've seen where AI significantly improve learning outcomes?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, so when we deliver training at a school, about a month after a teacher goes through our full training, we send them a form tracking a couple of stats. And one of the stats that we track is student engagement. And we teach them how to use, there's platforms out there that allow teachers to give monitored access of AI tools for students.
Mm.
So for example, if a history teacher wanted an assignment where students had to chat with Abraham Lincoln, they can now do that. They can have this Abraham Lincoln chatbot and they get to give it to their students and they get to see everything the student says to the AI tool, everything the AI tool says back. And the teacher even gets flagged if students were to use it in an inappropriate way or anything like that.
Hmm.
But we see a over 25% increase in student engagement when they're using AI tools on their assignments or in the classroom.
Wow,
Yeah.
wonderful. So, before we go to the next part of the conversation, which is training educators for an AI powered classroom, I want to acknowledge that this episode of Professional Lunch is brought to you in part by the Philstone Group. So, we thank them for their support. Now, training educators for an AI powered classroom, what is the first step for teachers who want to incorporate AI in their classroom?
I think the first step is really just understanding how to use the tool. I think people hear AI, artificial intelligence, and they automatically shut it off. They're like, that's probably very useful for techie people.
Hmm.
And they don't realize how incredibly easy it is to use. And they don't realize that, hey, if you can search on Google, you can use AI tools. It's the same function. There's a little bar there. It looks just like a Google search bar, probably for a reason.
Hmm.
You just type in what you want, click on go.
Hmm.
And it gives it back to you in formatted text instead of getting a bunch of links back and having to deal with all these websites that make you accept cookies and do all this crazy stuff. So the first step is just realizing that it's a tool for everybody. It's incredibly easy to use. And I think after your first 10 prompts, that's pretty much all you need. And then
Hmm.
you're like, oh, I can use the, and then your mind really opens up and you're like, holy moly, here's all these little things that I do throughout the day that I could really speed up.
Mm-mm. Wonderful. So, how does Groovy Education help educators feel more confident using AI tools?
And with that, it's really just pretty much everything that I just outlined there, explaining that to them, and
Hmm.
then just making sure they get hands on right away. We get them hands on very, very quickly. We show up to a school, I'd say about 25% of the teachers are using AI already, but 75% of them still have that mental block that it's only for techie people.
Mm.
And because that 25% that is using it is usually the more techie people inside of the school.
So, what do you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that
Oh, no,
was
so
it.
I was gonna say. So, what do you think the biggest fear those teachers, those 75% of teachers have about AI, and how do you think they can address them?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest fear, honestly, most of them, I wouldn't even call it a fear. I would just say that they assume that it's for techie
So it's
people.
an assumption.
It's an assumption.
Yeah.
And then you kind of pull it up and just show them a bunch of examples and you can just watch like, oh, you can watch their eyes almost light up in a way, or they lean in a little bit more when you pull up a bunch of examples of just in a PowerPoint on how to use it. And then by the time we get hands on with the tool, there's not much that I have to do besides repeat that, hey, if you can search on Google, you can use ChatGPT. They're ready to get on. They're like, oh, I've been missing out,
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
Hmm, wonderful. So, AI will replace certain kind of jobs, right? This is one of the things that one of the guests mentioned, that he's not gonna take away job, but he will we not taking them away, but he will change some of the positions, some of the
For
jobs.
sure.
Yeah. So can AI ever replace teachers? And does it only serve them, or does it only serve them as a tool to assist them?
That's a very, very good question. I would say within the next, like, and of course, this is just an assumption. In the next, like, 10 to 20 years, I would never see AI replacing teachers
Mhm.
because they're the ones delivering the curriculum to the students. I can see it being like completely automating the curriculum development process.
Yep.
I can see it completely automating that, but the actual delivery to the students, there's that human to human interaction, human to human connection. That's the art of teaching, being able to deliver something to the student in a way that they know they can understand and they can learn.
Mhm.
So with that, I know I'm very young, and I know if I ever when I have kids, I would be reluctant to sending them to a school where it's just AI teaching them and they're not developing those human skills.
Mhm.
How do I interact with this human teacher? How do I treat them with respect?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that I don't think that AI will replace teachers. No.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like the overall job market, it's absolutely going to change the role in jobs.
Mhm.
But we always fail to recognize that as technology takes jobs, it creates so many jobs as well.
Yeah.
And a good example that I like to bring up is Uber.
Mhm.
We have a lot of drivers now. That was just an application that sparked jobs like crazy. And technology will take those jobs when self-driving cars are fully sufficient.
Mhm.
So we fail to realize this cycle of technology creating, taking, recreating jobs. The function of the job really just changes.
Wonderful, man.
Yeah.
I love how you answered this question. And so, as we are focusing on educators, so what skill do you think that educators should focus on to stay ahead in an AI driven world?
What skill
Mhm.
educators to stay ahead?
Yeah, yeah. What
Yeah.
skills should they focus on to stay ahead?
Yeah. I think the biggest skill is really just using the tool daily. And because the tools constantly change, we see news every single week. Oh, this company now has the best AI tool. This company now has the best AI tool. And I see that all of that news as well. And there are so many platforms out there. But what I always like to say is, you don't have to know how to use all the different tools. If you just use one every single day and you pick one like Claude, or you pick one like ChatGPT,
Hmm.
or you pick Gemini, they all are constantly in this arms race of constantly one upping each other. So
Hmm.
don't jump from tool to tool, shiny object to shiny object. I would say, stick to one, stick to two, maybe stick to three, and use it every day.
Hmm.
For myself, I use ChatGPT the most, probably because that was the first one out. It's the first one I learned how to use, and it,
Hmm.
it has been the tool that's usually ahead of the curve of all the other companies.
Hmm.
So I just continue to use that, and that's the one I get good at prompting. But also, I'll go to Claude. Claude's much better at writing tone. I'll go to Claude and use Claude if I need to write something, and I like the tone that comes out of that a little bit better.
Mm.
Um, I'll use Perplexity, which is essentially kind of like ChatGPT and Google had a baby. I'll use that if I just have some random question that I want answered. That I would used to probably go to Google to search, but now I'll just go to Perplexity to search it because I'm going to get it back in a super simple sentence with a source sort of
Mm.
thing. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before we go to the next part of the conversation, which is talking about the future of AI in education, I have a favor to ask you. If you are listening to this podcast, if you are a follower on social media, if you are a donor, we appreciate that. But Professional Lunch is a nonprofit organization, and we rely heavily on guests, friends, and partners to keep our operation and also fuel our mission. When you donate to Professional Lunch, you help us keep this podcast going, working on our mentoring platform, and also keep our general operation going. So, if you have not donated to Professional Lunch before, we encourage you to do so. And if you have donated to Professional Lunch, we thank you for your support. Now, the future of AI in education. So, what do you think classrooms would look like, let's say, I don't know, 5, 10 years with AI?
Yeah, this is going to be super super interesting because it's going to heavily revolve like schools are going to need to purchase software, I think, which is kind of like this weird thing, and maybe not a I don't know if it's a good thing, but in order to personalize learning, say they want a curriculum that is tailored to every single student, which is very possible, very, very possible. And within 5, 10 years, it's gonna be more than possible, super easy.
Mhm.
They're probably gonna have to purchase some piece of software to get that automated curriculum tailored to each student. So that's what I think it'll look like is each student will have far more personalized learning and meet them exactly where they are at. But it's going to be interesting to see, hey, does that happen at the state level? Does the state implement the software for all of the schools?
Mhm.
Does it happen at a school level where the school has to go and find their own software to take into their school? So it's kind of like this very interesting thing that we'll just have to watch play out.
Wonderful. So, how can AI bring bridge the gap, the educational gap for students with different learning needs? And I think you kind of you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit. Is there anything else that can be done to for these things?
What I haven't mentioned
Hmm.
is the data analysis aspect of AI.
Okay.
So, for example, say we have a spreadsheet of student performance data
Hmm.
and we wanted to create a reteach plan based off of that. We want to say, hey, group these students into the students who are excelling, into the students who are struggling, and the students who are in the middle. Create a
Hmm.
reteach plan for the students that are struggling based off of exactly what they're struggling on, based off that student performance data. Create a enrichment plan for the students, enrichment slash reteach plan for the students who are in the middle doing all right,
Hmm.
and then create a something that pushes the students who are further to go even farther and learn even more.
Yeah.
So there's like this incredible opportunity for things like that, but also just finding students who are falling through the cracks. Hey, we have all of the student performance data in a spreadsheet. It's never been possible before to
Hmm.
take that student data and find the students who are falling through the gaps. Hey, who are the bottom 50 students at the school right now?
Hmm.
Here are the bottom 50 students at the school right now. Now, if you are a school leader listening and you heard that, you cannot send any personal identifiable information of your students or their family members into ChatGPT due to student data privacy laws. But there is a way to get, or not around this, but there's a strategy to use to be able to still find students that are falling through the cracks. Essentially, you just have to create like two separate files, one with like an anonymized ID along with the student name,
Hmm.
and then the file with all the student performance data, you just put the anonymized ID onto that file and take out the student name. And then you just tell the AI tool to reference the students by their anonymized ID. It'll say, hey, anonymized ID 003 is the bottom student in the class. Or
Okay.
now I can go back to the mapping file and find who that student actually was.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, um, you know, one of the episode of this series, we talk about ethical implication of AI. Now, for education, are there any ethical concern educators should consider when using AI?
Yes. I think if you do not, we teach a good 80-20 split. Where ChatGPT is great at doing that first 80% of content generation,
Hmm.
then we're going and doing that last 20% of quality assurance and making it exactly what we want and making it really our own. Hey, we get this massive starting point draft, then let's go and make it exactly what we want. We don't want to blindly use things that we get from ChatGPT. Just like how we don't want our students over relying on AI, we should not be over relying on AI as well.
Wow.
And you really see this across social media right now. Like there's a lot of just AI written, tweets, or I don't know what you call them now, X's.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of AI written stuff. And I like to call this almost like the dead internet. Nobody
Mm.
reads it. Nobody likes to read it. People
Hmm.
like original thought. People like, somebody's personal. We love storytelling because it's like their personal lives. You wouldn't want to go and watch a stand-up comedian that went over to ChatGPT and said, "Hey, write me a 1 hour stand-up comedic special," and just read that off. Or you wouldn't want to go and listen to a robot repeat that.
Yeah.
Like you listen to that comedian and you're like, that's a really funny thing that they observed out in the world. That's a really funny experience that they had and this
Yeah.
amazing take that they had on that experience. So it could be a massive tool in brainstorming for those things, but
Hmm.
it's always coming from like a personal thing. Another example that I like to bring up is lab grown diamonds versus diamonds mined from the ground. People pay extra to get the diamonds mined from the ground because they're more authentic,
Yep.
and they pay
Very
less
sure.
for the lab diamonds because they're artificial.
Yep.
So I think the same thing goes for anything that us as humans create is we always like that authenticity.
Wow. In earlier you mentioned, I was going to follow up on that. Developing critical thinking and problem solving skills for students. What role does AI play in developing critical thinking and problem solving in students? Simply because we know that if anytime you need something, you just go to AI, you don't get to think about the situation at all. And so, what role can AI play in helping students develop that critical thinking and problem solving?
Yeah, there's a lot of great tools out there right now that are amazing for this. Like one that comes to mind right away is Snorkel. They're actually a Minnesota-based company out of the Twin Cities, but they
Okay.
created a platform where students actually have to, like a teacher gives the student an assignment and the student solves the assignment on their screen like they're using a whiteboard,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also have to speak aloud through their thought process through the assignment.
Oh.
And then they actually have AI integrated to the platform. They're getting AI feedback based off of the student problem solving skills.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just going to be a lot of innovative solutions like that to really support the students to learn. And I just think one of the best skills, because AI is such a huge tool for problem solving, one of the best skills students can develop is just having agency. Hey, we have this problem and going through it and attacking it, not like taking a step back and waiting for permission to do something, but do this thing and let's get it done. And that sense of agency allows you to use AI as this amazing problem solving tool. For example, when I was launching Groovy Education or right now, I use AI to grow my business all of the time because I have this problem that I need to solve. I am a 23-year-old business owner and I don't have much life experience to reflect back on.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have this thing on my computer that has a wider base of knowledge than any one person. So why would I not go and use that as a problem-solving school tool to help solve my problem? It won't take the action for me that I need to take and take, maybe some of the things that it gives me and implement it,
Mm-hmm.
but it can give me a massive tool to brainstorm different ways to solve the problem, to create things to solve the problem, etc.
Mm, wonderful. So, and talking about students, how can I know it's a great tool to learn things, to learn to if you have your prompts, but how can AI help students prepare for the job of the future?
I think the easiest way to get a job right now is on your resume. Say, I am an AI expert.
Mm,
All employers are looking for that. They're looking for somebody to come in and be able to leverage AI in their business. There's like a massive opportunity out there. I mean, Groovy Education essentially just teaches teachers, teaches school leaders how to use AI.
mm-hmm,
So that's just like a business on its own. So like people are hungry to know how to use AI in their business, to know how to streamline things in their business. So I think just knowing how to use AI effectively in a specific field is completely invaluable
mm-hmm,
because you get to go in and hey, this little process here is going to be completely be automated. Hey, when we're doing this thing, why don't we just all use this exact same prompt to speed this process up? Like that sort of stuff.
mm.
So that skill of just knowing how to use AI in a specific industry is really important.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before we go to the last part of the conversation, if you are listening to this episode of Professional Lunch, we invite you to follow us on social media: LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We even have a TikTok account. So you can follow us on there and to find out, to hear some of the shorts we are putting out and also some of the full episodes that are coming out every week. So this week we are so grateful to have William Grube, the founder of Groovy Education. We are talking about AI and education. Now, we thank you. If you have supported Professional Lunch before, we thank you for your support. If not, this is an opportunity to support us, to help us keep this podcast going and also support our mission. Our goal is to develop a mentoring platform where college students can connect with experienced mentors in the community and learn about how they can launch their careers. So, we thank you so much for your support. Now, the last part of the conversation: AI impact on the broader education system. Um, how long has it been since you created Groovy Education?
About 2 years.
2 years. And so, what policies or guidelines should school put in place for responsible AI use?
Yeah, AI policy in schools is this massive conversation because most schools haven't implemented any AI policy.
Mhm.
But actually, this is very topical because I spent my whole morning this morning putting together this extensive guide on kind of really the steps to take to create AI policy.
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing is knowing how your students are using it, knowing how your staff is using it. So collecting some of that data and then getting things together like a teacher AI handbook. Hey,
Mhm.
here are the responsible ways that you can use it as a teacher. Here's how you shouldn't be using it as a teacher.
Mhm.
Here are responsible ways that your students can be using it. Here are how your students cannot be using it. And I was actually, while I was drafting it today, it's kind of went over this framework. For a student, they have green zone, like, hey, I can use AI to do these things, maybe create a study guide for myself to
Mhm.
summarize something, to help personalize my own learning, things like that.
Mhm.
Kind of a yellow area where they would have to go and ask the teacher, hey, is it all right if I do this on the assignment? And then a red area, hey, I shouldn't just be completing all my assignments with AI, things like that. So just having like a, a guide on, hey, here are the responsible ways to use it. Here's how you should not be using it. If you want to use it this way,
Mhm.
consult with your teacher. And then also a big thing is, of course, plagiarism. redefining that section of your policy to take into account AI. And I think those are the two biggest things, having, the AI handbook for teachers, for students,
Mhm.
and redefining your plagiarism statement.
Oh, wow. Very, very good. So, what industries outside of education are leveraging AI successfully, and how can school learn from them?
I see it a lot on the online space, like agencies, like marketing agencies, like really any agency that services a company. I see a lot of great stuff happening in B2B.
Hmm.
They're really taking to AI automations because, are you familiar with Zapier? It's essentially just this platform that has been a thing for a while now for automating certain things in a business. Like, okay, a row gets added to this Google Sheet. Now, these next three things happen because of that. But
Okay.
now, in that process, you could put a spot where ChatGPT does something. Okay, we fill out this form that, for a B2B example, like say I am a marketing agency and we fill out a form with all of the things that a company we want to service needs done. We fill out this form, and now I can have an AI automation in place that goes and creates the full proposal for me
Hmm.
and does all the next steps, so I don't have to sit there and manually make the proposal and send the proposal off without me having to do anything. So I see it being used really, really well in that space. And with education, that's going to be slower because of data privacy laws
Hmm.
and all of those platforms. Like, there can be a lot of automation done inside the school system, but most of it contains things like student data. So you can't really, you have to have your own AI model, or you have to be using a platform that's FERPA and COPA compliant. So it's really just like the AI automation steps that I see happening very quickly in the B2B space
Hmm.
that education will really be modeling after we solve that data privacy issue.
Wonderful. So, what's next for Groovy Education? Any exciting projects, partnerships on the horizon?
Yes. So it's a very exciting time at Groovy Education because all the pretty much 90% of the schools that we service are in Minnesota and
Okay.
North Dakota. But I am moving to Florida in June. So
Whoa.
I'm kind of giving myself a very big debacle. And and we probably do 50% of our trainings in person right now,
Okay.
and 50% of the trainings virtual.
Okay.
So our next really big next step is we're going to be going hard on getting more of a voice at the national level.
Okay.
That's going to involve a lot of stuff on social media and
Hmm.
giving away a lot of value online,
Okay.
and really making sure other schools or everybody across the nation knows about Groovy Education. Then we're taking more of our training model more virtual, and so we can service more schools and we can bring on more trainers.
Hmm.
So we're not limited to being there in person, because with that, think about how much travel goes into that. I mean, lots of schools that we service can be all the way down in the southeast corner of Minnesota,
Hmm.
all the way over to the northwest corner of North Dakota.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
lot of driving, and it's just simply not a way to service the most people.
Hmm.
It's not the way to service the most people at all. So taking everything more virtual and also just offering ongoing support,
Okay.
because when you do a one-off workshop, AI is going to change the next month.
Hmm.
So what changes are needed to be brought back to the teachers? Okay, hey, you can also do this now. Hey, you can also do this now. So it's this ongoing thing because AI changes so quickly. It's going to be more of a almost a subscription sort of model
Hmm.
where schools get this ongoing support instead of one-off trainings, and then, okay, now they're just back in like the sea of the unknown in the AI world.
Hmm. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, usually this podcast is also not only we know what you do, the service that you provide, but right now, tell us a little bit about the service that Groovy Education provide to schools.
Yes. So a school, they come to Groovy Education. They say, hey, we want to train our staff on AI. So this involves a half day training, usually typically 3 to 4 hours, where we're either going to their school, we're hopping on a Zoom and delivering a truly transformative training.
Hmm.
Typically, the confidence in using AI throughout the whole school increases by approximately like 150% is the average. So like a truly transformative training that saves everybody in your school, could be 3 to 5 hours every single week. And if you think about the man hours or the people hours that add up when you have, 100 staff members,
Hmm.
it's a lot of time savings where everybody's going on time more often.
Hmm.
Everybody's saving time. But they're, along with that half day truly transformative workshop, they're also getting a year's access to the Groovy Education online training portal, where the teachers get to go in and dive even deeper than what we did, learn even more skills about AI. And they do this to earn continuing education credits that they need to keep their teaching license. Partner with North Dakota State University, so the teacher can even sign up to take it for a credit through North Dakota State University as well. So all sorts of continuing education opportunities in there, but also just having them dive even deeper than what we did, because of course in a 4-hour training you can cover a lot and you can really build a lot of skills, but there's even more. And if a teacher wants to dive deeper, and many do, because we want to bring it to them in a way that's not overwhelming, they can go and do that.
Okay. Wonderful. So, and how they can access you? Is it groovy.com? Spell your website for them.
Groovyeducation.com. So
Okay.
it's GRUVY education.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we will post a link on the description of this podcast so that people can, those who are interested, can find you. So, if you could give one piece of advice to educators who are hesitant about AI, what would it be?
It would be to just go straight at it and try out a few things on ChatGPT or a
Mhm.
platform similar, see what you get, and really just start using it. And I think you'll be very surprised the amount of possibilities will open up. And you'll also realize that, hey, this tool isn't going away because of how incredibly valuable it is to everybody. So what can I do about that to make sure I'm preparing my students for a world where these tools do exist?
Wonderful. I truly enjoyed this conversation today, and so I want to know about the man. I know about Groovy Education and everything
Yeah.
that you're doing. So tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to be where you are today.
It's a very interesting question because I often ask myself the same thing, right? Right? No, I've always been more entrepreneurial driven,
Okay.
and I think now after I started Groovy Education, I'll always be entrepreneurial driven. I really like being able to help the most people possible. And when it comes to something like AI and being able to bring like transformative experiences to thousands of people all across the nation, it's really been eye opening for me. I think many people don't realize how much value they can give. And I think people can really give more, don't understand how valuable they are as a
Mhm.
person. Like
Yeah.
you have a certain set of skills and you can teach other people that set of skills. And I've really, really liked that aspect of it.
Hmm.
And I just really like, it's almost like playing a video game and
Hmm.
building a business. It's
Yeah.
so much fun. I,
Yeah.
I really, really like it.
That's good.
So
Good.
I wouldn't, there's not too much background as I'm only 23, but,
You went to
but
NDSC, didn't you?
I did go to
Okay.
NDSU. Yes.
And you grew up in this area here, or you're from?
I grew up in southwestern Minnesota, about
Okay.
15 miles north of Marshall, Minnesota. That's the next biggest town. There's only 13,000 people there, but we
Okay.
call that a big town in that area. And I grew up in a town called Cottonwood, Minnesota.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. As you know, professional lunch is about giving young professionals a window into the careers of those who are doing great things. And I'm so happy that you are really young and to come on the podcast to share the possibilities with others who are in school. And and this is what we want to do. We have university presidents, mayors who come on the podcast, people that are at the top of their careers. But when you have someone who just got out of school a few years and they already doing great things, serving many people, and I think that's something to appreciate. So, man, I really I applaud you for your success and the chance that you take to serve as many people as you serve. So,
Thank you so much for having me.
no problem. Yeah, it was a it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. So hopefully, those who are listening, if they are educators, they can reach out to your service. Go to groovyeducation.com to find out if their value is something that you can use in your school or even for yourself personally. So we thank William for being on Professional Lunch today. Thank you so much. Now this is this that was our last question of the episode. So well no the question before the last. So what advice would you give someone who is in school right now, in
But the
college?
in college,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it would be a make sure you know how to use AI very well, because it is going, like I mentioned before,
Yeah.
like if you have a specific interest, and it doesn't even need to be like I didn't grow up really want like I didn't grow up thinking I am going to own a business that is going to service schools. That's
Mm-hmm.
not what I grew up thinking.
Yeah.
But there is just a way that I could provide value in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, write down everything that you have, all the experiences that you have, and learn how to use AI.
Yeah.
And you can really service somebody and help them a lot on how to use AI, but also just implementing AI into whatever thing you are interested in. But I'd say the biggest advice is don't do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do nothing. There's so many options, and it gives people this option paralysis. They're like, because there's so many options, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just telling you, do something.
Yeah.
Do something and give yourself 90 days and go all in on that one thing.
Yeah.
Don't hop to things 3 days doing this, 3 days doing this. Give yourself 90 days, because by the end of the 90 days, you're not going to want to stop doing that thing.
Yep.
But it's this shiny object syndrome where you're hopping from thing to thing every 3 days. That's where the issue comes in, and that's where you just stop altogether because you never make any progress. You
Mhm.
have to give yourself at least 90 days and go all in on something. Don't do nothing. It doesn't matter what it is. Just go all in.
All right, young professionals, you have heard it from a someone who was out of college a couple of years. So we thank William for the wonderful episode that we just had today, and great pieces of advice both for educators and also for students who are in college. So we thank you so much for your time today. Now, Professional Lunch again is a non-profit organization, and we rely on guests, on friends, on partners to keep our podcast going, to work on to fuel our mission, and also to uh, for our operation. We thank you so much if you are a donor, if you have supported us in the past, and if you have not, this is an opportunity for us to support a great podcast where we have great professionals come on and share the knowledge and how they are serving the community with you. So we thank you in advance for your support. Now, this is the part that I tell you. It's up to you to make today a great day. Have a great day. William, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.